In the last episode, we started our epic adventure on the Holy Priest. I got my first taste for Mythic Plus as a healer, got really flustered at times, saved the day with some incredible grips, and did completely the opposite with others. But did anyone notice the complete blunder? Well, we'll get into that a little later. We're going to pick up where we left off. 595 item level and 712 score after 4 runs. We made a decent start to life as a healer, but we're a long way away from where we want to be, and we won't get there today. So the goal for this episode is to continue building on what we've started, obtain our set, finish the rest of the dungeon pool, and to better understand my cooldowns and to actually use them. Seems doable, right? I guess we'll find out. I won't sit here and bore you with most of the weekly stuff this time around, because it gets rather repetitive. Had to really try and use my T's there. However, I did want to start by saying thank you for the amazing feedback and support. I'm really glad a lot of you enjoyed the previous episode. There's a lot that goes into these videos and I'm happy it pays off. Thanks to all of my amazing Patreons too, by the way. Your continued support is incredible and I can't thank you enough. But talking about the previous episode, there were a couple of comments that I just want to quickly touch on. First of all, to those saying KSM is easy, or I got KSM in the first week, yeah, well, good for you, man, so did I. But just remember that not everyone can achieve the same goals. We all play the game very differently. The time we're able to allocate, our overall interest in specific content, our skill level, even stuff like disabilities. Just because something is easy for you doesn't make it easy for everyone else. In terms of saying the worst healer for Mythic Plus, well, I mean, it really is. And there's no denying that. However, I didn't say Holy was terrible. Holy's absolutely fine. It just lacks what other healers have, and life can be more difficult at times because of it. I'm not going to sit here and get into it all. That's a different video altogether. Just know that unless you're pushing the top content, and I won't be anywhere near that, Holy is more than capable, just like every other spec in the game. The last thing I'll quickly mention, because there's been a lot of interest, is my UI and add-ons. I have a UI video that goes over most of my UI and the installation process, and everything is available for free via the Discord. However, the Bastion sound pack I use is only available to Patreons and Twitch subs. Bastion is my son, by the way, so having him yell at me and tell me about mechanics is absolutely amazing, and I love it.
3, 2, 1. AoE. Dodge. Dance. Charge. Enter.
Alright, we kick things off this week by clearing LFR, and I have to show this, because these are the moments I dream of when playing the priest. That's right, baby. But is it really that special if it's in LFR? I'll let you guys decide this one, but either way, it felt amazing. We did all of the event stuff, LFR, rares, codex, time-walking dungeons. I even killed the Headless Horseman. I handed everything in, treated myself to the Tier 2 priest set, and sat myself down to open all of the caches. From LFR and the normal weeklies, we picked up a Curio, a Warbound Veteran Sareki neck, a Veteran waist, Veteran shoulders, another Veteran bottled magma trinket, Warbound this time, an agility staff, great for healers, Veteran wrists, and a Veteran ring with high crit and haste. From the caches, we received some more plate Warbound junk, another Veteran vial trinket, and I really hope we get a better trinket today, a Veteran ring with haste, mastery and speed, champion boots with crit and verse, a Veteran offhand with haste and verse, a Veteran neck with haste and crit, and lastly, for the third time, yeah, one of those bloody maces again. The first was a Veteran, the second was champion. This time, it's champion with leech. It really wants me to use one of these, but holy moly, that was a decent amount of goodies. I went through all of the gear and selected what I thought to be upgrades. I also switched around the rings to improve overall stats. But oh boy, I've been dreading this part. So, do you remember at the beginning of the video when I mentioned a massive blunder in the previous episode? Do you remember what I like to do after opening all of the caches? I explained why and everything. Well, I guess that means we've got double vault to open today. Oh, what a derp. But don't worry, because I make another blunder very shortly, and let's see if you noticed this one. From vault number 1, we had the options of a Veteran back with crit and mastery, Veteran hands with haste and verse, Veteran wrists with haste, mastery and avoidance, Veteran legs with crit, mastery and avoidance, a Veteran waist with verse and mastery, and a Veteran dagger with crit and verse. This one was a tricky one, but in the end I decided to take the legs. That way I could catalyze them and pick up my 4-set, and this would tick off one of today's goals. From vault number 2, we had the choices of a champion tier head, a Scrap Singer's Trinket, Veteran Hands with Crit and Mastery, a Veteran Waist with Crit and Mastery, a Veteran Offhand with Crit and Verse, Veteran Tier Legs, a Treacherous Transmitter Trinket, and another Veteran Waist with Haste, Mastery, and Leech. I actually decided to go with the gloves being the biggest upgrade, along with being something else that I could consider converting into tier. And I did just that, though I chose a little differently. I actually converted the champion head I was already wearing, and the legs I just picked up from the vault. Perhaps a mistake due to the stats that it left me with overall, but let's be honest, I'll replace this gear soon enough anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much right now. I then went and upgraded some gear, and do you know what I realised? I still had a curio to spend. Oh, dilly. Ay. So I upgraded a few bits, slapped some enchants on most of the gear, and we were ready to continue our Mythic Plus journey. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you guys that I do stream on both Twitch and YouTube, where I'll be playing the Priest when the challenge is over. We also run weekly viewer keys and a weekly raid. No prior experience required, everyone is welcome. To find out more, make sure you join the Discord, or you can swing by and ask while I'm live. Well, I've certainly left some hard ones till last, with mists being the exception, of course. Maybe. I was attempting this at gone midnight, and it had been a while since I played with pugs at this sort of time, but let me tell you, when you advance past midnight, it can get rather interesting. I got an amazing tip from a few of you guys in the comments from the previous video, suggesting I queue up for a follower dungeon before I start. That way, I can grab some mage cookies. Super helpful, most appreciated, thanks for that. I started looking through keys, and I don't mean to be that guy, but seeing a +2 with lust in the title, yikes. The first key I joined was a Grim Batol +2. Again, sticking to a +2 and looking to clear the remaining 4 dungeons I'd not experienced yet. I noticed it was a full plate group and jokingly asked if they were hoping for a holy paladin. Nothing. I made my way to the dungeon, but it seemed a couple of members were either AFK, being a lazy butt and expecting a summon, or just didn't know they could get here by using a portal. Either way, they took their sweet time, and it seemed the tank wasn't having any of it.
Okay, if you people can't even find a dungeon, this will be a poop show, I'm out.
And to be perfectly honest, this didn't give me good vibes either, so I followed. The next group I got into wasn't that bad, but as I was making my way, they asked if I wanted to do this at a +4 instead, so I politely declined and moved on. I can probably do a 4, but I really want to stick at +2s, I'm just starting out. I did eventually get into a group that got going, and this was again for a Necrotic Wake +2. This group had a Vengeance Demon Hunter that sat at around 580, which I wasn't confident of, a Balanced Druid and Unholy DK that sat at around 600 item level, and a Destro Warlock that sat around 610. From the get-go, this tank took so much damage. Just ignore the Guardian Spirit. I know what it does, but for whatever reason, I keep using it like it's a healing cooldown for myself and not something I could throw on a tank. I'm a derp, okay? And you'll definitely see more of these. The dot right at the beginning was no joke, yet another thing I completely forgot about, and it caught me off guard. Of course I panicked, and at 50% HP, the tank just jumps away like, okay, let's go! Then nearly dies. Jesus man, is this a sign of what's to come? The positioning for the first boss was interesting. I didn't know where we were expected to place the frontal, and of course, I was the first to get it. I assumed as we were in the far corner, I'd place it there. The boomy noticed and moved away, the warlock came with me and got hit. Not ideal, but it's fine. I should have been better positioned for that though. But now the warlock's out of place, and although they can get themselves out with their gateway, I decide to lend a hand. That's right, putting those grips to use. This guy doesn't last long, and we move on. Not too far though, as the tank runs off, everyone still needs healing, and they take their sweet time before using some mitigation. Well, I think someone's gonna die if they carry on like this, and they nearly did on this pool, but I managed to keep everyone alive. Though, sadly, I can't say the same about the pack with all the sorcerers. And look at this master spell placement, by the way. Maybe 1 AM isn't the best time to heal keys. I struggle with healing, I prioritized the warlock hoping the demon hunter would keep themselves alive just that little bit longer. Though sadly, I was wrong, and that was completely on me. The AFFIX certainly made life much harder, and this is where I learnt the true meaning of healer AFFIX, as even those with a dispel just completely ignored it and left everything to me. So this AFFIX is called Devour. Xal'atath places a shield debuff on all party members. This can be removed by dispelling it or healing through it. This also inflicts shadow damage every second. If removed within 15 seconds, each player gains 2% extra health and 4% crit for 30 seconds. However, if I fail to remove this within 15 seconds, nearby enemies will be healed for 10% of their health. And this buff stacks, by the way. Sounds easy enough, right? And it certainly can be, but it can become pretty tricky if you're the only one dealing healing with it. I was having to put out an absurd amount of healing, and I felt like I never had time to drink. We lacked a lot of crowd control, and of course everyone decided to pad instead of focusing on the main target. I sometimes do this too on the paladin. I get it, I know how it is. But the tank continues pulling like a maniac. I have 0 mana, and in a panic I try letting them know. I quickly drink what I can, and I just type mana. The most efficient way of letting your group know that you're low, because the tank's clearly not tracking mine. This continues up to the second boss. Nothing to really cover here, lots of damage going out, not a lot of CC. I panicked when the Frostbolt volley went through, but this time managed to get everyone with Mass Dispel. The third boss went really well, surprisingly. I can't say the same thing about the last boss though. Oh boy. And can someone please explain to me how I can put my spells on this chain? Some next level healing. I got super flustered and prayed that no one would take damage from the storm, which they did quite often. Overlapped with the AFFIX. Yeah, perhaps I could have saved them with Guardian Spirit, but good old me used it on myself yet again. What a guy. The DK was tanking the boss, then got gripped away, the Warlock started taking hits, and luckily the tank got picked up by the Druid. The Warlock was living on the edge towards the end, but we pushed through, and we did eventually take this guy down. We +2'd this key, gaining 177 score, taking our total rating to 889, and we looted a champion ring with Hasten Verse from the chest. And yet again, another useless warbound item. I've honestly just been vendoring these. I signed up to another Grim Batol and waited patiently for the group to find a tank. No! Oh well, at least the paladin can help with the spells, right? We began this key, the Demon Hunter started taking damage, and I knew this was gonna be hell. Grim Batol is probably one of, if not the worst key this season, and there's certainly parts I'm not looking forward to. However, this tank was different. Not only did they start taking less damage, but their damage output overall was pretty insane, at least during trash packs. This player knew how to play Vengeance, and that's not to say that the previous tank didn't, but there is a big difference when it comes to really knowing how a spec works. I don't know Vengeance enough to comment on anything, nor do I know the damage output for each dungeon, as some dungeons have more physical or magic damage than others, so it's really not for me to say. But I was confident with this tank, it just felt different. Perhaps you could use me as an example. You could argue that a healer with 600 item level should be good enough to run +5s, or higher. But with my ability, confidence, and knowledge of the priest, yeah, I'm not ready for that just yet. 2s are just fine for now. These are hard enough. Did anyone see how the paladin died, by the way? Anywho, I followed 2 other players here, leaving behind the tank and the rogue that continue pulling trash. Whoopsie. Always follow the tank. That's my #1 rule for Mythic Plus, and I broke that rule. Bad Dilly. We reunited with the rest of the group and chained pack into boss. Everything just melted in this place and it felt great. This boss went down just fine, so did the second boss, though I got stitched up on trash just after, as I got stunned and took a frontal to the face. Then I looked at the buffs again to get rid of Guardian Angel, and yeah, I still don't have a cancel macro. Everything went really well until we got to the third boss. Phase 1 is usually a walk in the park, unless you're a healer that's unaware of the incoming damage. Oh, that's me! Luckily, you have some time before the boss returns. I let 2 shields go out on the boss, very poor on my part. And of course I get fixated first. I thought I was going to let another shield go out, but luckily the boss went down before it happened. Then on to the part I was dreading the most. The trash before the last boss. These corruptors are awful. And of course there's 2 at the bottom of the stairs. The paladin stood in the swirlies and got mind controlled, which they ended up bubbling to get out of. But they get hit by another one on the next corruptor. Then we get to the last trash pack with 2 corruptors. And look, not only do I PI the right target as they pop their cooldowns, but the rogue gets targeted by one of the corruptors and I use Guardian Spirit on them and not me. Hey, progress! Though I couldn't save them the second time. And I did blame myself for this at the time. I felt bad about letting them die, only to realise later that they were mind controlled and there was nothing I could even do about it. We begin the last boss and it doesn't take very long before someone makes friends with one of the tentacles.
Whoa, that was close.
I bet you wish you had your bubble now. Our only CR too. At roughly 30%, the rogue also gets violated by one of the tentacles, but manages to break free and stays alive. And that was pretty much the fight, as we push on and finish this key, +3 in it, gaining a whopping 180 score, taking our total rating up to 1069. Giggity. And even though I didn't receive any loot myself, the Demon Hunter didn't need the back piece they got. 3 of us rolled to the death, but they were no match for Dilly's 89. This gave me the epic achievement and took our total item level up to 601. I returned the next day, fresh and ready to go, and we kick things off with a Stone Vault +2. This time we have a Prop Warrior, Unholy DK, an Assassin Rogue, and a Dev Evoker. You don't see many of those, though I've not seen many Orc Evokers this season either. All these groups so far have had at least one person, other than myself, that could help with the AFFIX by dispelling themselves, but those so far have been really poor and have barely bothered. And obviously as a healer, I noticed these things, but I'd not actually checked details just yet to see if they were. We will at some point though. The first pull was a spicy one, though many in this place were, to be honest. I dread hierarchies. We started the first boss and I was pretty terrified about the dispelling mechanic. I can't mess this up. Is the rogue gonna move? I guess not. The AFFIX came out and I was afraid that Mass Dispel would dispel the mechanic. Luckily it doesn't, and it dispelled the tank mechanic to keep them alive. Phew, I was dreading that part the most. The rest of this fight goes just fine and we move on. And there's nothing to really cover until we get to the second boss. And oh man, can we get a damn interrupt please? It's pretty ridiculous that you don't have one as holy. I honestly don't understand. The Evoker doesn't understand this either. Afraid so, buddy. It was nice to see the tank communicating though. Also, this reminds me of a debate we had in Dragonflight, and it was incredibly split. So I'm gonna ask again. Do you use the term combat res or battle res? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, if you're enjoying the series so far, it'd be massively appreciated if you'd leave this video a like. The sub button's there too, by the way, completely free, just saying. Anyway, I guess the Evoker wasn't worthy of a res, so they didn't get one. But we took these guys down and we moved on. Now, I feared some of the trash before the next boss, but I think I did a splendid job on these guys. Now that's a word you don't hear very often. To be honest, if it wasn't for my son yelling at me about incoming AoE, I'm sure many would have died throughout these dungeons. It's so damn helpful. This boss wasn't much of an issue, at least for this key level, where everything just died. I imagine the higher key levels will be a whole different story. The tank told me to take some orbs around 20%, which I didn't actually see until the boss died, and I just played it cool, like, I'm good for +2s on orbs, but to be totally honest, I just completely forgot. I just didn't want to look silly. Now on to probably the most brutal trash in this place, just before the final boss. And it actually wasn't terrible. There was, of course, a lot of damage that went out. Some we could have avoided by killing the totem in time, but we obviously didn't. We start taking down the last boss, and the rogue must have looked at the death counter and took it as a personal challenge. It was a bit broken too, apparently. I got the corruption debuff and cleared it instantly. I wasn't messing around. Everyone else cleared theirs, but the rogue was standing their ground. Hello, my dude? Void? Clear? No? Well, they had their chance. I'm yoinking this one. Yet again, everyone cleared their debuff, and the rogue was still going strong. What a champ. But I finally give in and grip them to clear the debuff. It looked like they popped their cheat death. They were probably going to die if I didn't do something. We do eventually take this guy down, the rogue is kept alive, and I'm rewarded with 180 score, which brings our total to 1,249. I loot a Scrap Singer's trinket from the chest. The Evoker asked if I needed it. I'm happy to trade, but sadly I don't notice that it's higher than what I currently have. Super awkward when this happens. Man, I hate that I can't just trade the trinket. I understand why. I get the system. I don't like it though. The last key I needed was a Mists of Tirna Scithe. I consider this the easiest key, at least if I'm playing my Ret Paladin. I have no idea what it's like to heal this place, but we're about to find out as I sit here waiting for a tank. Yup, a 580 Vengeance Demon Hunter signs with 0 score. I can't escape these guys today. They wasn't terrible to be fair, and we actually had an Org Evoker, the first I've seen in quite some time, so this had to be a good key. We lost the mage during the first pack. I wasn't healing that. Check this hunter damage though, yowza. I feared the most on the first boss. Get it? Because we got... yeah, I'll see myself out. The maze. Something recently asked about on stream, and I did such a terrible job explaining this. It's just the odd one out. Well, I usually find this one pretty simple, but when I have to worry about positioning and everyone's health, it turns out my brain completely shuts off and I totally forget what I've just looked at. I just couldn't process any further information. Ms. Lima 404. I wasn't the only one though, it seems, as someone failed by going through the wrong door. I'm glad it wasn't just me. The second boss. Well, Dodgeball was apparently very hard to avoid, so many of these hit and it was painful at times. I only managed it because Bastion told me to dodge. The tank grew in confidence after the second boss and pulled big. They handled it very well, though there was a lot of avoidable damage being taken, players spread a bit too far, important casts not being interrupted, and giving all enemies a shield. But even though I handled that massive trash pack quite well, it's very often a nasty crossover that tips things the other way. So much damage going out, we had the AFFIX, poisons I can't do anything about, a lack of CC, lots of avoidable damage, then out of nowhere, the tank drops very low, and I panic as they've been pretty solid up to this point. They die with Guardian Angel still available, and I totally blame myself for that one. This leads to everyone else dying, and it racks up the total death count to 8. What a mess. We get back to continue, and I try and politely ask those that could to dispel themselves a little more, and we'll have a look to see how many times this happened after the dungeon. We start the last boss with 7 minutes remaining, but we're still missing some count. This was another messy fight, with lots of damage going out from time to time, and players out of reach to heal. I got fixated by the mobs and ran to the tank. This is also when the AFFIX was about to come out. I managed to clear all of this and try to position myself the best I could to heal everyone up. Unfortunately, we lose the hunter and I get fixated once again. With Guardian Angel on me, again, I position away from the green poop, but no, I can't run to the tank as the pull mechanic is incoming, so I just heal through it. We take this guy down and head towards the trash to get the last bit of count, and I wait until now to remember how my cooldowns actually work. I use Premonition with the Clairvoyance effect and just start spamming myself with heals, spreading this to everyone else. But no one even took any damage. It was completely wasted. Amazing stuff there, Dilly. Good job I'm only covering Grip of the Week and not Derp of the Week, because that'd be right up there. But anyway, we take down this last bit of trash, sadly only timing this key, gaining 169 score, our lowest out of all of the keys so far. And this took our total rating up to 1,418. Pretty crazy considering we've only done 8 keys at a +2. I get nothing from the chest, but notice 2 players loot the Changeling trinket. And well, you don't ask, you don't get, right? Oh, and dispels, by the way, no comment. So that's 8 out of 8 so far, and the key I considered to be the easiest out of them all turned out to be the key I got the least amount of score for. I couldn't escape Vengeance Demon Hunters this week either. Has there been a shift in the meta that I don't know about? Nah, they've had their time. Alright then, I know what you guys have been waiting for. Grip of the Week. None quite stand out as much as they did last week, but I did get a few in. No major derps today, I'm afraid. No dilly blunders. But we did make life easier for a party member when they found themselves alone and very lost in the world. Come and join us, buddy. There you go. Clearing the rogue's debuff in Stone Vault was pretty hilarious though. I honestly think they were just completely oblivious to it and didn't know. But we'll never know, I guess. It was a personal challenge at first, but I want to keep that death counter down, so I wasn't going to take any more risks with that one. But Grip of the Week for me was the first one in LFR. A rather confused player, no idea where to go or what to do with themselves, gripping them into the correct position, and saved the entire raid from being stunned and taking damage. This felt great. Disagree with my choice? Let me know in the comments below.